name is Edward Ventura, and my teammates for this project are Antonio Berrios and Silvestre Martinez, and we'll be talking about Chapter 8, Growing Pains, the New Republic from times 1790 to 1820, and the topics are 8.1, Comparing Divisions of Federalist and Democratic Republicans, 8.2, The New American Republic, and 8.3, the Partition Politics. Okay, so let's begin talking about comparing divisions of Federalists and Democratic Republicans. The elections for the first U.S. Congress were held in 1788 and 1789, and from there, New Hampshire became the ninth state to ratify the federal constitution, which allowed a new plan for a strong central government. Okay, so now we'll begin talking about Federalists and power. Federalists shared similar beliefs to the British notion of social hierarchy. Federalists did not at first comply with the political party, but held certain shared assumptions with them, such as they feared equality, they feared that it would destroy the republic, they believed in political participation was linked to property rights, which prevented many citizens from voting or even holding a position in office. They believed the revolution hadn't changed the traditional social roles between women and men, or even between races. Women were always below man, even if they were black or natives. They were secondary to white male citizens. Also, the Tariff Act was passed in 1789, which was intended to raise revenue to address the country's economic problems. Architects of the Constitution were committed to leading the new republic as well. Now we will begin talking about the Bill of Rights. Many Americans opposed the 1787 Constitution because they felt it was a dangerous concentration of centralized power that risked the rights and liberties of many Jewish citizens. These people were also known as the Anti-Federalists. Although they were not a political party, they were a group of people demanding protection for individual rights. These states made the passing of the Bill of Rights a condition of their acceptance of the Constitution. James Madison introduced the Bill of Rights, which was approved by Congress. It was adopted in 1789. This softened the anti-federalist opposition to the Constitution and gave the new federal government greater legitimacy amongst those who distrusted in the new centralized power of the government. 8.2 The New American Republic. The French Revolution in the early 1790s influenced the evolution of the American political system. In the United States, the French Revolution hardened differences between the Federalist and Democratic Republicans. The Federalists feared the anarchy of the French Revolution and worried that democratic republicanism would bring that kind of disorder to the United States. The Democratic Republicans supported the goals of the French Revolution, even if they didn't support the means, and believed that siding with Great Britain instead of France meant a return to a system of monarchy. The French Revolution was a major change in the government that began in 1789. It brought an end to the absolute monarchy and the start to a representative government. It caused a split in American thinkers due to the different ideological beliefs and values, causing a deeper split in the political divide of the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. In 1789 and 1790, it appeared to the United States as a new beginning, where they intended to omit a corrupt monarchy, which was inspired by the American Revolution. In France, a constitutional monarchy replaced the absolute monarchy that Louis had, and France was then declared a republic. The events of 1793 and 1794 challenged the simple interpretation of the French Revolution as a moment of happiness, being that they had put on an end to being ruled by a monarch. The French king was executed in January 1793, and the following years after the revolutionary government was in crisis. France was being attacked by foreign countries on all sides, and civil war was breaking out in many regions. Radicals led by Maximilian took over the government, starting the Reign of Terror. During this time period, the radicals took control of the revolutionary government. The revolutionaries advocated for a direct representative democracy and replaced Catholicism with a new philosophy known as the cult of the supreme being. They suppressed Christianity and even executed a group of nuns who refused to renounce their faith. In general, they arrested and executed anyone who they thought might not be loyal to this belief. The Citizens Genet Affair of Jay's Treaty. The Citizen Genet Affair was a French representative who attempted to contradict the Neutrality Proclamation by organizing armies to attack British and Spanish territories. Washington ejected him from the country when he became too bold in his recruiting, threatening government authority. Jay Treaty was a treaty which offered little concessions from Britain to the U.S. and greatly distributed the Jeffersonians. Jay was able to get Britain to say they would evacuate the chain of posts on U.S. soil and pay damages of recent seizures of American ships. The British, however, would not promise to leave American ships alone in the future, and they decided that the Americans still owed British merchants for pre-Revolutionary War debts. Because of this, many Southerners especially were angry and rioted. A brief summary of Jay's Treaty is that it gave American ships the right to trade in the West Indies. It also hardened differences between the political parties of the United States, and it stipulated the U.S. citizens would repay their debts from the Revolutionary War. The Whiskey Rebellion. In 1794, farmers in Pennsylvania rebelled against Hamilton's excise tax on whiskey, and several federal officers were killed in the riots caused by their attempts to serve arrest warrants on the offenders. In October 1794, the army led by Washington put down the rebellion. The incident showed that the new government under the Constitution could react swiftly and effectively to such a problem, in contrast to the inability of the government under the Articles of Confederation to deal with Shays' rebellion. In Washington's Indian policy, relationships with Indians were a significant problem for Washington's administration, but one on which white citizens agreed that Indians stood in the way of white settlements, and as the 1970 Naturalization Act made clear, they were not citizens. Overall information. Federalists and Democratic Republicans interpreted the execution of the French monarch and the violent establishment of French Republic in very different ways. Revolutionary success in France and the slaves' revolt in the French colony of Haiti raised fears amongst Federalists of similar radicalism
and slave uprising on American shores. They looked to better relationships with Great Britain through Jay's Treaty. When distillers of whiskey, many aligned with the Democratic Republicans, took action against the federal tax on their product, Washington led a massive force to put down the uprising, demonstrating Federalist intolerance of mob action. Though divided on many issues, the majority of white citizens agreed on the necessity of eradicating the Indian presence of the frontier.
George Washington had been re-elected in 1792 by an overwhelming majority. In the presidential election of 1796, the two-party Federalist and Democratic Republican competed for the first time. Federalist John Adams defeated Democratic Republican rival Thomas Jefferson. During the presidency of John Adams, the war between Great Britain and France in the 1790s shaped the U.S. foreign policy. With John Adams' relation with France, the American Republic had no real leverage to obtain its goal of trading freely in the Atlantic. At the same time, French Directory issued decrees to seize any ship with British goods, targeting the West Indies, where the United States was conducting trade with Britain. This caused an undeclared war, known as the Quonset War. As a result, John Adams created the U.S. Navy. The American public were outraged by French foreign minister attempting to bribe the American, which is known as the XYZ affair. Rebellion leader Toussaint was able to secure an independent Black Republic in Haiti, and Napoleon chanced to rule it. The Sedition Act was passed to stop threat from French immigrants, but ended due to no French immigrant threats were ever found. Matthew Lyon was convicted under the Sedition Acts, with Jefferson and Madison responded against the Sedition Acts. Their attempt failed when the other states were in disagreement with them. The Quonset War ended in the 1800s, which reopened trade between the two countries. The presidency power passed to a Democratic Republican Thomas Jefferson, which is known as the Revolution of 1800. Thomas Jefferson quickly grew in popularity due to the criticism by the Federalists to John Adams. During Jefferson's presidency, his greatest accomplishment was Louisiana Purchase, which helped his vision Empire of Liberty. This also increased his popularity among the Union farmers and slaveholders.